Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tech Bubble. We're back with your hosts, Asir, as well as Jawad, and today we have another really special guest with us. His name is Ibrahim, and he is currently a software engineering intern at Facebook and an ex-Google intern.
Yeah. So Ibrahim, did you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Ibrahim. I'm a software engineering student at the University of Waterloo. I think I'm in my third year now. And yeah, I'm currently working at Facebook, so I'm on a work term right now. I'm working remotely from home due to COVID. Before that, I was at Google. Yeah, that's pretty much a brief overview about myself.
Cool, cool. Yeah. COVID is out there. Everything is remote. It's definitely
Yeah,
a really different experience. We're so used to, working, going into the office every day. So it's definitely something you have to get used to.
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So yeah, Sir?
Yeah, for sure. So you touched a little bit on Facebook as well as working remotely. So do you mind just diving a bit deeper into that and how maybe your current work placement is going and what Facebook is like at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time to be at Facebook for many reasons. Uh, One, because there's been a lot of controversies, so things like the advertiser boycott. There was the whole like Donald Trump's tweets and how they were like flagged by Twitter but not by Facebook. All that was happening along with being remote due to COVID. So definitely a very interesting time to be there. So there's definitely like pros and cons. So I think just in general, remotely, I found that I have had a much better control of my time. So instead of working like a standard 9 to 5, I have more control over like when can I take breaks. If I want to pick something up at night, I can do that without any worry. So that's been nice. But the hard part to that is that, especially as an intern, when you need more mentorship and when you're new to a company and when you're onboarding, you have a lot of questions. So to do that over video call, it's much less efficient than being in person. So definitely not the full experience, but I've enjoyed it still. I have a good team. Everyone's nice, friendly. Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I think me and Jawad have had a similar experience. Working remote has definitely impacted us. I think it has its own pros and cons, but yeah, I think that's a really good point that it doesn't have that same personal thing because as being in person, because when you're in person, you can not only build that relationship, but also it's a lot more efficient communicating. So yeah, I think that's a really awesome point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just to build on that is, like you mentioned about onboarding, that was like very different because you usually there with someone, they can like type on your computer and stuff and go through, just stuff gets done a lot quicker. So that was definitely, for me as well, was something to adapt to. So yeah, so like you said, you're working at Facebook, and like just on YouTube and stuff, everyone sees that Facebook interviews are so hard. There's so many rounds. Did you want to like tell us more about what was your interview experience like for at Facebook?
sure. Yeah. So my school had so I guess Waterloo, as you probably know, is a little different. So typically companies have a slightly different interview process because the timing's usually a bit weird and stuff. So if my interview experience is probably not the same as what other people might have, but basically it was a very quick turnaround time. So it was like I applied through my school, my university, and then there was a week where they came over and did some interviews. So there were 2 rounds of interviews, but each round had 2 questions each. Yeah, so the first question of each was pretty straightforward, but then second question for both of them for me were pretty challenging. But yeah, it wasn't anything like out of the ordinary, like oh wow, this is the hardest interview I've ever done in my life. Like it's definitely manageable if you do your practice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, practice is always really key. Getting on leak code and going through
Yeah.
it is always good to do.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I guess for interviews, like what were some of the tools that you used that really guided you um, through the process and just helped you build your confidence and skill set before actually getting to the interview stage?
That's a good question. I think it started well before I was interviewing with Google and Facebook. I think mainly like the work I put in uh, to get like my first and second internships definitely translated over. So I think like the summer after my first co-op, which was at Thomson Reuters, I put a lot of time into like learning data structure and algorithms, doing a bunch of practice problems, writing things down, and then that really carried over. So that when I was interviewing with like Google and Facebook, I just did some practice, reviewed on things I wasn't as confident in. Yeah, it's definitely a long game. I feel like a lot of people are impatient and they just want it to happen overnight. But it really does just take a lot of time, and you often don't see that when you hear about other people. It's easy to get carried away. So it's definitely a long process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a really great tip. Just patience is key. Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm not too patient myself. It's but definitely you have to play for the long game every day. Get on the grind. So specifically, like something I go through a lot. I wanted your point of view on it. Is you're doing these like lead code questions, like these very hard data structures algorithm questions, and sometimes that's like very demotivating, and it's like I don't want to go keep doing this because like I'm not getting any better. So like, did you have any tips for someone who's going through that, and like how do you overcome that like hump?
Yeah. So I've done like I guess okay. So I guess I should say when I'm like practicing for interviews, I normally stay away from questions labeled like extremely hard and questions that aren't as common, because especially as an intern, the chances of you getting asked an extremely hard question where the answer is like super cryptic, involves some like crazy like bit manipulation, is like very low and like not worth your time. If you're going for like a senior engineer role and like you've really like mastered all the basics of like strings and arrays, and you want to try like those crazy like dynamic programming problems, and like by all means. But as an intern, like I think like the easy and medium questions are going to be the most common by far. And just your basic graphs. You don't need like crazy. You don't need to know like every single type of tree ever. Just like keep it simple. Like work on the fundamentals. And if you're stuck on a liquid question, like a lot of people say, like bang your head at it until you get it. I don't fully believe in that, because I think at the beginning when you're learning the fundamental like techniques to solve problems, no matter how hard you think, you're probably not going to get there if there's some like really common algorithm out there to solve things, right? Like I think there's one question in particular that like I always think back to, which is like it was something like find a cycle in a graph, and I was like, oh, you can use a hash map and keep track of all the nodes you've seen so far. But it turns out there's a better solution where you use two pointers, one goes faster than the other. And I'm like, okay, if I spent like 50 hours of my life thinking about that, there's no way I would have thought about that. It's like this crazy algorithm with like its own unique name.
Yeah,
So I think at the beginning, like, don't be afraid to just like read the answer, understand it, and then try it yourself like a few days later.
for sure. Yeah, that's like a common thing that's around. It's like, yeah, keep going at it, and then you'll eventually get to it. But like you said, like if it's something that's pre-existing, like no matter how hard you do it, you're just wasting time at that point. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's definitely a good point, and I'll start using that because I do bang my head on it, and it's not very useful a lot of time. And I know Steve can relate because we do mock interviews with each other. But
Mm.
yeah, so that is a definitely good advice for sure.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add on to that is that normally in your interview, it's meant to be collaborative, right? So you usually have an interviewer there who's kind of nudging you along. You can ask to verify if you're on the right track. So definitely like different environments.
For sure.
Yeah, so just touching a bit on the interview part again, like something that's really emphasized is the technical portion of the interview, but something that isn't really talked too much about is the other portions of the interview, like maybe the personality questions or the culture questions. So, do you have any tips for prepping for maybe the other part of the interview that isn't as technical?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just to be yourself. I think in my early interviews, I found that I would over prepare, and not really be relaxed. I think, especially in tech interviews, as opposed to maybe other disciplines, the non-technical portion is really just like get to know you and like, are you a nice person? Because I feel like, culture fit. I feel like is more just like, oh, are you a nice person? Do you like to solve problems, etc. So yeah, honestly, just be yourself. Like, be relaxed. Don't worry. Um, yeah.
Awesome advice.
Yeah, that term culture fit is thrown around like every day. You know, like you have to fit our culture and stuff, and then they
Yeah,
don't really know what that like means. It's like what do I do? Like how do I?
exactly.
But yeah, no, for sure, being yourself is definitely key in these interviews to get your personality and your stuff across. So, like you mentioned, you're a ex-Googler. That's what we call it. Uh, was the interview process from Google much different than at Facebook? Like, was it similar?
Yeah, it was extremely different, probably on opposite spectrums. So as Facebook, it was like day came 1 week. I found out if I had an offer within like I think I had like my first round on one day, the next round the second day, and then like I found out I had an offer on like the day after. So it's like 3 days of like first interview to offer. With Google, it was like the whole process was maybe like five months.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like from me applying, 2 weeks to get a response, maybe another week to schedule an interview, 2 weeks until that interview. Then I had 2 rounds of interviews for them, and then I had another 2 week break while they decided. Then instead of saying yes or no, they decided they wanted to have another round with me. So then I had another round after another 2 weeks. Then I had like this. So with Google, it's a bit different because with Facebook, it's like if you pass all your technical interviews, like you're guaranteed an offer, right? They're going to put you on a team. With Google, even if you pass all your technical interviews, you're not guaranteed an offer. You're put into what's called the host matching stage. So it's basically like this: you're put in this pool of interns. You fill out like this preference form of like your skills and what kind of team you're looking for. And then basically, when a manager at Google wants to hire an intern, they can look at this giant pool of interns who have been deemed qualified, and then just interview and pick from there. So even after you pass all your interviews, like I've had friends who had been in like this host matching limbo stage for like a year and not heard anything. So a lot of chance it is involved with the Google process. Yeah, luckily enough, after a long time, maybe like a month of being in host matching, I finally got some interviews and an offer.
Wow, that's yeah. I didn't know that was such a long process. Seems like like Facebook is more my type of company because I'm impatient.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like Google. Yeah, I've known about host matching. People been in there for like 1 or 2 years and they never get like matched. So that was yeah, that's pretty crazy on that end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to the more technical side again, like comparing Facebook and Google, are there any major differences, I guess, in the difficulty of questions asked? Like, were they both like easy to medium type questions, or how would you describe that part?
Yeah, I think a mix of easy and medium. I think maybe there was like one hard question in both of them, which is like on the lower spectrum of hard, like maybe like a tougher medium question. Like for example, an example would be like a basic dynamic programming problem, which I got asked at Facebook, or like a little bit of a tricky tree problem, for example, but nothing too like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned dynamic programming because when I was doing that in my courses, that was always got me. Like that was just the hardest concept. I could never like understand how to do it. Like you're just pretty much guessing half the time to
Yeah.
get to the solution. Yeah, no, that's definitely those harder questions. So yeah, if Asir, did you have any more questions?
I think I'm good on my end.
Okay. So yeah, so I think this is a good time to stop and move on to our next portion of our segment where we'll be asking Ibrahim some funky questions.
For sure. So, yeah, should I start with the questions, Jawad, or do you want to head into it?
Yeah, you can start with the questions.
Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah. So Ibrahim, how funky are you feeling from 1 to 10? Question.
Let's do a 6.
A 6. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay, a 6. Okay, if you had to eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's a good question. So I think there's like two sides to this. There's like one which is like, what's my favorite food? And the answer to that is different than what I would eat for the rest of my life. I think my favorite food would probably be like mangoes or something. But if I had to pick something to eat for the rest of my life, I feel like I die very quickly from mangoes. um, I think I read somewhere that like the like most optimal answer to this is like potatoes because it has like the right combination of like vitamins and nutrients like keep going the longest. So yeah, potatoes, I guess.
Good choice. Good choice. You could go with French fries, mashed potatoes. A lot of options there. A lot of options.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that potato was the most classified as the best answer to this question. That's something new.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, don't cite me as a source for that.
Yeah, no worries. So one question we've asked in the past is if you would like to go like 50 years in the future or 50 years in like back, like in the past, which one would you choose?
I think the future, just because I feel like quality of life is getting better as time goes on. It's like, is it like my age stays the same, but I like go to a different time period?
No, you're going with time as well.
Wait, how
Oh,
that work?
okay. Oh yeah, so I would like not be born if I went 50 years back.
Yeah. Okay, so let's rephrase the
Yeah,
question. You're
yeah.
right. I
No,
did
no, no,
think
no,
this
no.
one
Okay,
through.
wait. Ibrahim, you're the exact same age, but then you can either go back 50 years
Yeah.
or go
That's
forward 50 years.
that's a better question.
Yeah, probably forward. I think it'd be cool to just like see how like tech evolves and like the human race if we've like destroyed ourselves or not versus in the past. Like I feel like I'd get angsty as to um like oh I used to have all these things now I don't have them anymore and I'd probably feel like spoiled. So
Mhm.
But,
Cool. Okay, I will ask another question. So I guess, would you rather have the superpower of being invisible, or would you rather have the superpower of being able to fly?
uh I think being able to fly would be nice. I don't know how I would make use of being invisible. Like there isn't something too like sketchy that I would want to do. being If anything, I think it'd be kind of annoying. But yeah, I think flying is great. You don't have to pay for flights. You get to fly around. Everyone's on the ground.
Mhm.
Just sounds like a good time.
Awesome choice.
yeah, I would have personally picked invisible because I could do some, like go through walls and stuff. That would be pretty sick.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah. Another question. This is a little. If you were to either lose your hands or your feet, like your legs, which limb would you rather lose?
So I'm losing both of
Yeah,
of either.
yeah.
Oh man, is it like my entire arm or just my hands?
No, like your whole limb. Yeah, the whole arm.
I feel like probably my legs. Because even though I can't walk, at least I'll still have a career where I can type on a computer. Unless I get really good at typing with my feet, which I don't see happening. Um, yeah, yeah, I know. I think like just being able to like pick up stuff. I think a wheelchair is a pretty well established mobility device, so I'd probably go for that.
Mhm. Cool. Okay. If you had to be any fruit at all, like literally be the fruit, what fruit would you be?
I'd probably be something like horrible that no one wants to eat. I don't know what that would be. I can't think of a mine. Fruits are great. I can't think of one that I wouldn't want to eat. Do you guys have any fruits that you hate in mind? I'd probably be that one.
I'm trying to think of something with like a hard outer shell, so it's difficult to get in to me. Like if that makes any sense,
Oh,
it's for protection. But
for protection.
yeah, maybe like a watermelon because I just be like massive, have a huge presence or whatever. But yeah,
True. And everyone loves you.
exactly.
That's true. That's true. I so the next question is similar to Asir's, but instead of a fruit, if you had to be some sort of like animal, like somewhat like an animal that could be as a pet, like
Like a domestic animal.
yeah, domestic animal, exactly.
So I guess that leaves like dogs, cats, fish, birds, and like some reptiles, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's probably the super basic answer, but I think a dog, just because like humans love dogs,
Yeah.
dogs love humans. It's just a good time, you know. You get to go outside, you get to roll around in mud, you know. What else could you ask for, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, for questions, I think that's all for me for now. Joanne, how about you?
One last question, not as much funky as it's tech related, but if you have to use one programming language for the rest of your life, you cannot
Ooh.
change anything. What would you use and why?
Uh, I think I think Python, because you can apply it in so many different scenarios. Like you can do scripting with it, you can do web programming with it, a lot of things. Yeah, or maybe I'll say C++ because it's like this giant with like so much functionality that you would never get bored of. So yeah, one of the two, one of those two.
Makes sense. I would C++ is a good answer. So
Joanne
so
like all those. Yeah, favorite language, eh?
one of them. One of them.
One of them. Okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good on questions on my end.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah, I guess before we wrap up the show, Ibrahim, do you have any final remarks or tips for our audience watching?
Yeah, if you're a student who's like trying to get internships, I guess just recognize that like it may seem like people around you are like doing so well, like getting internships without doing much. But reality, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and like if you stay patient, just keep doing your work, it'll come eventually.
Cool.
Awesome.
Just one thing I wanted to add is I saw that you have a course on data structures algorithms. We'll just leave that in our description below. You guys can check it out. I haven't bought it yet, but I've taken a look and it seems pretty valuable. So if any of you viewers are interested, you can always check that out.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Mm. Cool. I think, yeah, that's all for today other than that. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.